I took the train to surprise my grandson. On graduation day, but my son said, "You're embarrassing him." But I watched from the parking lot until he gave my seat to his wife's aunt. He told me not to come. That's what my son said, standing on the edge of the platform with his hands deep in his pockets. "You shouldn't have come, Mom," he repeated, eyes scanning the crowd like he hoped no one would notice me. "It's just, this isn't a good time." I still had the gift in my purse, a watch I had engraved for Justin, my grandson, with the date and 3 little words, "Always with you." Not some poetic nonsense, just a truth. I've been there since the day he was born, changing his diapers when his mother vanished for days, taking him to speech therapy when no one else had the time, sitting up with him when he was sick and scared of the dark, his little hand always reaching for mine. And now, at 17, he was graduating high school, and I wasn't allowed. The train ride had been long. My knees had hated every hour of it, but I had refused to let Greg buy me a plane ticket. "You already paid for too much," I told him weeks ago. "This one's mine." I didn't tell him it would be my last long trip. My joints couldn't take much more. I didn't tell him I had started forgetting simple things, like where I left my keys or how many sugars I put in my tea. No, this trip was my gift to Justin, to show up, to be there. But Greg didn't hug me. He didn't take my bag. He just looked embarrassed, like I'd arrived wearing a clown costume instead of my neat navy coat and low-heeled shoes. "Justin doesn't know you're here," he muttered, glancing over his shoulder toward the parking lot. "And honestly, Mom, maybe it's best if it stays that way. He's under a lot of pressure." I looked down at my shoes. Polished just this morning. My legs were shaking, but not from age. "I thought he'd be happy," I said quietly. "I haven't missed one of his milestones. Not one." I know, Greg sighed. "But he's different now. It's not like when he was a kid. He's grown up, got his own friends. They're all gonna be there. Paulina's family, too. They come from a different kind of background." I let that hang there. Different kind of background. He meant they had money, prestige. They lived in the polished world of internships and prep schools and silent judgment. And I was just the woman who used to mop floors and pack lunches in thrifted Tupperware. "You said I had a seat," I said. "That was before. Now Paulina's aunt flew in unexpectedly, and you gave her my seat." He didn't answer, just shifted his weight and looked away. I nodded slowly. My hands found the strap of my purse and gripped it like it was the only thing keeping me upright. "Well," I said, "I'll find my own way." Greg opened his mouth, but I turned before he could say whatever half-hearted apology he thought would smooth this over. I walked out of the station and kept walking, past the shuttle buses, past the vendors selling school colors and plastic noisemakers, past the smell of popcorn and freshly cut grass. I walked until I found a small rental lot and sat inside a silver sedan I'd picked up hours earlier. The ceremony would begin in 2 hours. I would watch from the parking lot. And for the first time in my life, I wouldn't be clapping. The air conditioning in the rental car rattled a little when I turned it on, but it worked well enough. I sat back, unwrapped the plastic from a half sandwich I'd brought from the train, and watched the long line of cars pull into the lot. Shiny SUVs, expensive sedans, a few stretch limousines with tinted windows. I counted them for no reason at all. Maybe just to have something to focus on besides the ache in my chest. My seat. That's what I kept circling back to. It wasn't about the folding chair with my name printed in bold. It was about being erased, quietly and efficiently. A life of showing up, to babysit, to fund field trips, to remember birthdays, to stitch back pieces no one else bothered to hold together. All of it pushed aside for a woman I'd never met. Paulina's aunt. I imagined her in something elegant, probably pearls. Not the kind you get from a garage sale because they look real if the light hits just right. Real ones. I checked my purse again. The envelope was still there, sealed. The graduation card with the simple watch inside. A little note I'd written on the back of the tag. To Justin. I've loved you every day of your life, no matter the distance. Love, Grandma. I folded the flap back over and slid it into the side pocket. Maybe I'd leave it at his doorstep. Maybe I'd mail it next week. Maybe I'd burn it. My thoughts flickered between all three like a faulty light bulb. A tap on the window made me jump. I turned and saw a young woman, early 30s maybe, dressed in a staff polo shirt with a clipboard in her hand. Her face was flushed from the sun, but her smile was polite. "Hi there," she said through the glass. "Are you here for the ceremony?" I hesitated, then rolled the window down a little. I was supposed to be. She blinked, unsure what to say. "Oh. Well, the auditorium opens in 20 minutes. If you're waiting for someone, I just wanted to let you know parking time is limited for non-ticketed guests." "Thank you," I said. "I'll be on my way soon." She nodded, gave me a kind enough smile, and walked off, calling something over her shoulder to a fellow usher. I watched her clipboard bounce with each step. On it, I imagined, was a perfect little list of names and seating arrangements, none of which had mine anymore. I leaned back in the seat, letting my eyes wander to the crowd forming near the main entrance. Students in robes, families posing with flowers and signs. I spotted Justin almost immediately. Even from this distance, I'd know his walk. Tall, shoulders slightly hunched forward, like he hadn't yet realized how much space he could take up. His gown fluttered behind him as he half jogged across the lawn toward a group gathered near the steps. My heart thudded. He was beautiful. Not handsome in some polished catalog sort of way. Beautiful in the way that made your throat catch. His eyes, even from far away, were filled with that restless energy I'd seen since he was a boy, the kind that wanted to run faster than the world would allow. A woman ran up to him and hugged him. Paulina, blonde, confident, expensive-looking. Then another woman, maybe the aunt, clasped his shoulders, said something that made him laugh. He smiled. He smiled. I don't know why that hurt so much. Maybe I expected him to look around, to search the crowd for the one face he hadn't seen yet. Mine. Maybe I wanted him to feel somewhere deep in his bones that I was close. But he didn't. He laughed, posed for a picture, and stepped inside. The door closed behind him. I sank lower into my seat. And that's when I did something I hadn't done in years. I cried. Quiet, useless tears. Not because I was angry. Not even because I was surprised. But because some part of me still thought I mattered. Some stupid part that had held out hope. A part that wore pearls from the second-hand store and rode the train for 9 hours to sit in a car she didn't belong in. I wiped my face roughly, furious at myself. No more. I sat up straight, found my phone, and opened the banking app. The charges for the event were still pending. The catering invoice, the floral arrangement, the photography package. Nearly $12,000 in total, all billed to the same account. My account. I tapped the screen, paused, then tapped again. Cancel transaction. The screen blinked twice. Then came the little message I hadn't expected to feel so good reading. Cancellation request submitted. I stared at it. My thumb hovered over the screen as if it needed confirmation that I had actually done it. $12,000 gone from the caterers, the florists, the photo booth. $12,000 still with me. For now. The silence in the car was thick, not uncomfortable, just final. I had always paid without asking questions. When Greg's mortgage needed a top-up, I paid. When Paulina wanted a new kitchen island before the baby shower 3 years ago, I paid. When Justin's school uniforms needed replacing, again, even though he'd barely grown, I paid. But now? Now they couldn't even find me a chair. I opened the window slightly, just enough to let the warm air in. The scent of fresh-cut grass and warm pavement wrapped around me. Somewhere in the distance, a band was tuning up and a cheer rose from the crowd. It must have been the announcement. The ceremony was starting. I wondered if Greg was looking at his phone yet, if his card had just been declined when he tried to tip someone or pick up a last-minute bouquet. I imagined him standing there in his pressed jacket, phone pressed to his ear, his mouth tightening when he heard the voice on the other end say, "Authorization denied." Good. Let him sweat a little. A movement outside the car caught my attention. A girl, tall, dark curls pinned neatly, green dress, was walking alone down the side of the building. She looked lost and young. Maybe late teens. She stopped near the car and pulled out her phone, checking something, then looked around. When her eyes met mine, she hesitated, then took a few cautious steps forward. "Excuse me," she said, her voice polite but a little uncertain. "Are you Mrs. Mason?" I blinked. Yes. Her face lit up. "Oh, good. I wasn't sure I had the right person. I'm Alyssa, Justin's friend. He talks about you a lot. Says you make the best peach cobbler in the state." I felt my mouth twitch, almost a smile. "He says that?" "All the time. I think he misses your cooking more than anything when he's at school." I tilted my head, unsure what to make of this sudden sweetness. "Are you part of the ceremony?" She shook her head. "No, I'm just here with friends. I saw you from the side window, and I thought, I don't know, maybe you were lost, or needed something." I studied her. There was no performance in her face, just a quiet honesty, a warmth. I gestured to the passenger door. "Would you like to sit for a minute?" She looked surprised but nodded. "Sure." We sat in silence for a while. I could hear faint applause through the open window, names being read, parents cheering, flashbulbs popping. "I didn't get a seat," I said eventually. "I heard," she said softly. I turned. "You heard?" She looked down at her hands. "I was helping set up yesterday. Justin's name card was on the front row. There was one next to it that said, Mrs. L. Mason. I asked if that was his grandmother. Paulina's cousin rolled her eyes and said, Not anymore. Greg said she wasn't coming, that she'd probably just get confused anyway." I closed my eyes. "I'm sorry," she added quickly. "I thought maybe you knew." "I do now." She sat quietly beside me, her hands folded in her lap like she didn't quite know where to look. "It's funny," I said, my voice calm, almost amused. "I spent most of my life cleaning other people's messes, making sure Greg had shoes that fit, taking double shifts so we could buy a used piano because he begged for lessons. He quit 2 months later. I didn't mind. It was never about gratitude. It was about showing up." "I think Justin knows that," she said. I nodded. "Maybe." We watched as the crowd inside shifted. The final names, probably. A burst of music played again, louder this time. They were moving outside. The courtyard ceremony, maybe the photos. Alyssa looked at me. "Do you want me to bring him to you?" I was quiet for a long time. Then I shook my head. No, sweetheart. If he wants to see me, he'll know where to look. The doors opened, and the graduates began to spill out like bright confetti. Robes flowing, caps askew, some tossing them into the air with whoops of victory. Parents surged forward with phones in hand, tears in their eyes. There were cheers, balloons, banners, a storm of love, noise, and pride. I watched from the car. Alyssa had gone to meet her friends, leaving me with a soft, apologetic smile and a promise to stop by sometime if I ever wanted company. I thanked her. Not for the visit, not even for the kind words, but for being the only one today who looked me in the eye and didn't flinch. I sat still as the crowd thickened. Justin was easy to spot. Tall, unmistakably so now, his robe unzipped over a crisp shirt and tie, cap in one hand, a bouquet of white roses in the other. He was smiling again, a wide, unguarded grin as he hugged Paulina and someone who must have been her aunt, the one who had taken my place. She kissed his cheek and handed him a wrapped gift, a little blue box, something expensive. He nodded politely. Greg hovered near them, laughing a little too loud, clapping Justin's shoulder like he'd done something extraordinary himself. He probably believed he had. After all, wasn't he the one who got Justin here? Paid for tutors, with my money. Arranged the prep courses, with my money. Bragged at barbecues, with stories rooted in my labor. I saw Justin glance around once, briefly, scanning the edges of the crowd. My breath caught, but it passed quickly. He was probably just looking for one of Paulina's cousins, or the photographer, or a friend with whom he wanted a selfie. Not me. Never me. And then, a flicker. His hand reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He looked at the screen, tilted his head. His expression changed. Just slightly. A crease in the brow. A soft frown. I knew that look. He used to make the same face when I told him there were no more cookies in the jar and he suspected I was lying. Greg leaned in, said something, and Justin responded. I couldn't hear the words, but the gesture was unmistakable. He stepped back, shook his head, disagreed, and then he walked away from the group. Not fast, not in a scene, but with intent. I sat up, heart tapping hard against my ribs. He crossed the lawn, wove through the crowd, eyes searching. I froze. When his gaze swept toward the parking lot, I didn't duck. I didn't hide. I just sat there, hands in my lap, the envelope still peeking from my purse. And then our eyes met. He stopped. A full heartbeat. Then another. And then he came. He crossed the lot in long strides, ignoring calls behind him, stepping off the paved walkway and through the yellow grass to where my car sat under the wide-armed oak. He reached the door. I rolled the window down. Grandma? His voice cracked around the word. I nodded. He looked me over. My dress, the one I'd ironed this morning, just in case. My hair pulled back into its usual bun. The watch on my wrist. My hands. He looked like he wanted to say something and couldn't find the shape of it. I didn't know, he said finally, breathless. I swear, I didn't know you were here. I nodded again, slowly. I believe you. Why didn't you tell me? Your father told me not to. His jaw clenched. He told me you couldn't make it, that you were too tired, that you said it yourself. I didn't. Silence settled between us, heavy but clean. Is that for me? He motioned to the envelope. I handed it out the window. He took it gently, almost reverently. Can I open it? It's yours. He slipped the seal open with careful fingers, pulled out the card, read it, then saw the watch. His eyes filled. Grandma? I picked it because it's quiet, I said. No ticking sound. Some people don't like the noise. He said nothing for a moment, just held it, the strap stretched across his palm like something sacred. I didn't know, he said again, softly. I know, I whispered. He looked at me, really looked, and I saw the boy I used to know flicker back through the man he was becoming. Can I sit with you a while? He asked. I reached across and unlocked the door. Justin slid into the passenger seat like he had 100 times before. There was a small scuff on the knee of his dress pants, probably from running across the lawn. He didn't seem to notice. He was holding the watch in both hands, as if afraid it might disappear. We sat in silence for a while. I didn't need to fill it. He did. I should have asked more questions, he said finally. When Dad said you weren't coming, it felt wrong. But I didn't want to start something. You were busy, I said. No, he answered. I was comfortable. I turned my head slightly to look at him. His profile was strong now, the soft lines of boyhood sharpened by time and self-awareness. But his voice, that was still my boy's voice. That edge of shame, of wanting to make things right, even if he didn't know how. They gave my seat away, I said, not bitter, just plain. His eyes dropped. To Paulina's aunt. I raised an eyebrow. You knew? She came this morning, last minute. Dad said there wasn't room for everyone. But you were on the original list, Grandma. I saw it when the programs were printed. You were supposed to be right next to me. I didn't answer. He exhaled hard. He told me you canceled. Said you didn't want to sit in the front row, that you didn't like crowds. I rode 9 hours on a train, I said quietly. Justin looked down at the watch. I should have called. I didn't argue. He should have. But what good would it do now? He wasn't cruel, just careless in the way young people often are, floating in the warmth of their own new beginnings, unaware of the shadows they cast. You look handsome, I said. His smile was small, almost boyish. Paulina picked the tie. I wanted the navy one. She always pick for you? Lately, yeah. He didn't sound proud of that. I watched him twist the watch in his hands, turning it over, tracing the engraving with his thumb. Always with you, he read aloud. That's what it says. I nodded. She's never even asked about you, you know? Paulina. I told her stories about when you took me to the library every Thursday, and when you came to every school play even when I only had one line. She laughed and said I was a grandma's boy. That's not the worst thing to be. He laughed softly, then went quiet. I think I got so used to being proud of where I was going, I forgot to be proud of where I came from. That one landed deep. I didn't show it. I looked out the window. The courtyard was clearing out. The photographers were finishing their last rounds. Greg stood near the edge of the fountain, phone pressed to his ear, his face sharp with frustration. Looks like he just found out about the cancellations, I murmured. Justin followed my gaze. You canceled everything? Most of it, I said. The banquet, the flowers, the professional pictures. They'll get to keep the plastic centerpieces. Those are probably paid for. He let out a low whistle. Damn. I gave him a sidelong glance. Language. Sorry. We sat in silence again. Then he said, You're not going to the dinner, are you? I didn't answer. He turned toward me. Can I take you somewhere instead? Like where? I don't know, somewhere real. Burgers, maybe? Milkshakes? Somewhere I don't have to pretend. I watched him, unsure if he realized what he was offering. It wasn't just a meal. It was a hand reaching backward, toward the child he used to be. The one who thought a fast food dinner with Grandma was better than steak on linen. I'd like that, I said. Justin smiled. Not politely, not performatively, but like a boy who'd just come home. "I'll drive," he said, reaching for the keys in the ignition. "You've been in this car too long already." He drove like a boy who hadn't had the chance to drive freely in a long time. Not recklessly, just with a kind of quiet confidence, one hand on the wheel, the other resting loosely near the gear shift. I watched his profile as he navigated the small streets away from the school, the crowd, the family gathering now unraveling without notice. "Do you even know where you're going?" I asked, half smiling. "I have a place in mind," he said. "It's not fancy." "That okay?" I chuckled. Fancy's never impressed me. I like food that looks like food, not like sculpture. He glanced at me. "You're still the same." I raised an eyebrow. "Were you expecting someone else?" He didn't answer, but the way he smiled made me think he understood more than he was letting on. He pulled into a narrow side street, past an old gas station and a shuttered hardware store. Then the place came into view. A squat brick diner with a flickering neon sign, Hank's. There were no white tablecloths, no valet parking, no wine list, just chipped booths and laminated menus and the kind of place where they know how you like your eggs. "I used to come here with you," he said. "When Mom was still around and Dad was always busy. After Little League games, remember?" I did. The memory hit sharp and sweet. He'd sit across from me with scraped knees and dirt on his cheeks, ordering grilled cheese and asking if I thought he'd ever hit a home run. I always said yes. He held the door for me, and the bell jingled overhead. The place hadn't changed. Same red booths, same old fan spinning lazily above. Same waitress behind the counter, too, though she looked a little grayer now. "Two?" she asked. Justin nodded. "Corner booth, if it's free." She gave us a quick smile and pointed. We slid into the booth by the window. The vinyl was warm from the sun. Justin reached for the menu, then set it down without opening it. "I already know what I want," he said. "Grilled cheese and a chocolate shake," I guessed. He grinned. "And curly fries. Some things don't change." I looked over the menu. "I'll have the same." "You used to get soup," he said. "I used to have teeth that didn't mind crusty bread." He laughed, and I felt something loosen in me, something old and knotted and hard. The waitress took our order and returned with 2 glasses of water and a knowing look. "Graduation day?" she asked. Justin nodded. "Congratulations, sweetie." "Thanks." When she left, he leaned forward, elbows on the table. "So what happens now?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, with Dad, with Paulina, with all of it. Are you really done?" I stirred my water with the straw. "I think so. You've been doing things for us forever, paying for everything, being there, even when no one noticed." "I noticed," I said simply. "But it was never about the money, was it?" I shook my head. It was about making sure the people I loved had what they needed. I just forgot to ask if they needed me. His jaw tightened. "They don't deserve you." "Maybe not," I said. "But you do." He didn't answer right away. Just looked out the window at the parking lot, at the people walking by, at the world still turning like nothing had changed. "I'm going to college in the fall," he said. "State University. Full scholarship mostly. But housing's tight. There's a wait list for the better dorms." I saw where this was going. I reached into my purse and pulled out a smaller envelope. Not the one with the watch. This one was flatter. Paperwork. "What's this?" he asked. "New account. In your name. I transferred the graduation funds into it." He stared at me. "Grandma?" "I didn't cancel the payments because I was angry. I canceled them because they forgot who paid. Who cared? You remembered. His eyes shimmered, just for a second. I'll use it carefully. I know. He held the envelope like it was made of glass. You didn't have to. Yes, I said. I did. The food came just as the sun started sliding lower, casting warm amber light through the diner's windows. Our grilled cheese sandwiches sat golden and crisp on white plates, curly fries piled like tangled ribbons on the side. The milkshakes were thick, served in tall glasses with whipped cream beginning to melt down the rim. I watched Justin take his first bite. For a moment, he looked like a boy again. No gown, no expectations, no weight of future plans. Just a young man eating something that reminded him of simpler years. I missed this, he said around a mouthful. It tastes the same. Of course it does. Real butter, cheap bread, sharp cheddar. The formula never needed fixing. He smiled, and for a while, we just ate. No heavy talk, no emotions pushing up against the silence. Just the clink of forks, the soft hum of the overhead fan, and the comfort of presence. When he was nearly done, he set his milkshake down and asked, "Do you think you'll go back tonight?" I shook my head. "I'm staying in a motel near the station. I'll take the early train tomorrow." "I could drive you." "You don't have to." "I want to." I looked at him. "It's not about the ride, sweetheart. It's about where you go when this dinner ends. Back to them." He shifted uncomfortably. "I don't know what I'm going to say to Dad." "You'll figure it out." He frowned. "He's going to be furious. When he realizes what happened with the payments. He already knows. I saw his face while you were walking over." Justin rubbed his hands over his face. "He's going to blame me. Let him." "But I didn't." "I know. But sometimes people need someone to aim their guilt at. If it helps him sleep better, let him think it was your idea. I've got broad shoulders. So do you." He shook his head. "It's not fair. Most things aren't." He stared at the table for a long moment. Then he looked up. "Do you forgive him?" I didn't answer right away. Forgiveness wasn't a coin I handed out easily. Not after a lifetime of being overlooked, tolerated, thanked only when it was convenient. "I don't know if it's about forgiveness anymore," I said at last. "It's about clarity, seeing what's there and what's not. What I can still give, and to whom." He nodded slowly. "And me? You?" I smiled. "You're not broken, Justin. You just got a little lost. But you found your way back. That's more than most manage." The waitress brought the check. I reached for it out of habit, but Justin was faster. He tucked a few bills under the receipt without letting me see the amount. "I'm allowed to treat you once," he said. "Careful," I warned. "It's addicting." We left the diner together, stepping into the soft pink glow of evening. The breeze had cooled, rustling the trees along the sidewalk. A few kids rode past on bikes, laughter trailing behind them like kites. Justin walked me to the car and opened the door for me. "Can I drive you to the motel?" he asked. "No, but you can walk me to the front desk." We rode the short distance in silence. When we arrived, he walked me in, like he'd promised. At the counter, I gave my name and took the key. The clerk didn't ask questions. Small towns have a way of letting silence do the talking. Outside my room, Justin hesitated. "You'll call me?" he asked. "When you get home?" "I will." "And if I visit this summer?" I smiled. "The peach cobbler won't bake itself?" He stepped forward, then stopped, then stepped again, and wrapped his arms around me. Tightly. "I love you," he whispered. I held him, and for the first time all day, I let my eyes close. He left only after I'd locked the motel room door behind me. I stood by the window for a while, watching him walk across the parking lot. He didn't hurry. He wasn't slouched like usual. He looked taller somehow, straighter, like someone who'd made a choice. Once his car disappeared down the road, I sat on the edge of the bed and took off my shoes. My feet throbbed from the day. Too many hours in shoes made for standing proud, not for standing still. I unpinned my hair, shook it loose. The mirror across from me caught the movement, and I stared for a moment at the woman reflected back. Tired, older, but still here. I reached for the hotel phone and dialed. Not Greg, not Paulina, not even Justin. I called the bank. "Mrs. Mason," came Richard's voice, warm and measured like always. "Everything all right?" "Yes," I said. "Everything's fine. I'm calling to confirm that the transfers I canceled today won't be reinstated." "No, ma'am. Everything remains as you requested. The funds were stopped before authorization. The vendors were notified." "Good." There was a pause. "Is there anything else I can do for you?" he asked. I hesitated. "Actually, yes. I'd like to schedule a full review. I'm considering restructuring my will." "I can set up a call for Monday morning, and I'll arrange for a legal consultant to join if you'd like." "That would be appreciated." We finalized the details, and after I hung up, I sat quietly in the still room. The air conditioner hummed low, and the world outside the thin curtains fell into darkness. I thought about Greg. I thought about the sound of his voice this morning at the station, the tightness, the shame he hadn't even tried to hide. He knew what he was doing. He knew what it meant to ask his mother to turn around and leave. And he did it anyway. For convenience, for appearance, for control. The pain of that choice still lingered. Not sharp anymore, but slow burning, like a bruise pressed under the skin. And I wasn't naive enough to think there'd be an apology. Not a real one. Greg didn't apologize. He explained. He justified. He maneuvered. But maybe he wouldn't get the chance this time. I pulled out my old address book and flipped to the back, where I'd scribbled names I hadn't dialed in years. A lawyer I'd met after my husband died. An accountant I'd trusted before Greg insisted he take care of things instead. They were still alive, still reachable. I drew a line under one name and circled it. Then I wrote something new. Everything starts Monday. With that, I turned off the light and lay down, still fully dressed, still holding the watch box in one hand. I woke early. Not from noise or discomfort, but from clarity. It was still dim outside, the sky barely touched with blue. I got up, dressed slowly, and packed my things. The envelope with Justin's new account documents I placed back in my purse, along with the little note he'd slipped into my hand as he said goodbye. I hadn't read it yet. On the train, I did. It was folded once, written in that all-caps, boyish handwriting he'd never grown out of. "Thank you for not letting them turn you into a shadow. I see you. I always will." I pressed the paper to my chest. The motion of the train rocked me gently, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was running from anything. I was returning. Not to the same house, not to the same routine, but to a place inside myself I hadn't visited in decades. The part that didn't apologize for existing. The house was exactly as I had left it. Quiet, modest, sun-warmed in the late afternoon. My peonies had bloomed while I was gone. Pink and full and unapologetically alive. I stood at the gate for a moment, luggage in one hand, purse in the other, and just breathed. Home didn't greet me. It didn't need to. It knew I was coming back. Inside, the air was still. A faint scent of lavender from the sachets in the linen closet. Dust on the windowsill. Mail in a neat stack under the front mat. Nothing urgent, nothing desperate. Just the ordinary hum of a life I had held together for longer than anyone realized. I made tea, not because I needed it, but because the ritual anchored me. I set the kettle on the stove, took down my favorite cup, the one with the hairline crack no one else notices, and waited. My phone rang just as I sat down. Greg. I let it buzz twice, then 3 times, then stop. A minute later, it rang again. Greg. Again. I let it ring out, then opened the message he finally sent. Mom? What the hell is going on? The venue called. The florist said payment was withdrawn. Justin is missing. Call me back right now. I didn't reply. 2 minutes later, another. I know you were in town. Why didn't you tell me you were coming? You embarrassed me, Mom. Paulina is furious. I set the phone face down on the table and took a sip of my tea. It was still hot. Still strong. Just the way I liked it. By evening, I'd gotten 9 missed calls, 4 voicemails, and 2 messages from Paulina herself. Her tone was clipped. Formal. The way you speak when you're pretending not to be livid. Edith, I understand you've canceled several critical payments for Justin's celebration. This has put us in a very difficult position. I hope you realize how unkind and disruptive this was. Please call so we can resolve this like adults. I smiled faintly at that last line. Like adults. Funny how that phrase only showed up when they wanted something. I spent the rest of the evening in the garden, pulled weeds, watered the soil, watched the bees slip between the blooms with a kind of purpose I envied. I was tired, but not the kind of tired that asks for rest, the kind of tired that asks for change. The next morning, I went into town, visited my lawyer, signed the first round of documents to reassign power of attorney. Greg's name, once scribbled so confidently on those lines, now struck through and replaced with my own. Then I opened a safe deposit box, put Justin's note inside, along with a copy of the watch engraving. Always with you. Let them think I was petty. Let them say I was dramatic, unreasonable, even cruel. Let them talk behind closed doors about the episode I had in my old age. Let them cast shadows. I wasn't in them anymore. That evening, Justin called. Hey, he said, voice softer than I'd ever heard it. Hey, yourself. I'm home, he said. I've talked to Dad. And? He tried to act confused, said it was all a misunderstanding, blamed the agency, then Paulina, then the seating chart. Of course. I didn't buy any of it. I told him I knew what happened, that I saw you, that you were there. I closed my eyes. How did he take it? Worse than I expected. Better than he deserved. I waited. I told him I won't be taking the money he set aside for college, Justin added. I told him I've got a better source now. Are you sure? I've never been more sure. He paused. Thank you, Grandma. Not just for the account. For the clarity. I smiled. Clarity's a gift, just not always a gentle one. No, he said. But sometimes it's exactly what we need. The next few days passed in the rhythm I hadn't known I missed. Slow, deliberate, mine. I answered no calls, responded to no messages. I went to the farmer's market. I baked a peach pie just because I could. I repotted my geraniums, even though my knees complained the whole time. The silence around me wasn't empty anymore. It was full. With peace. With choices. With a kind of stillness that didn't ache. Then one afternoon, I got a knock on the door. Not a phone call. Not a text. A real knock. Through the lace curtain, I saw a woman. Well-dressed. Late 50s maybe. With pearl earrings and a silk scarf too fine for this dusty porch. I didn't recognize her at first. But something about the set of her jaw felt familiar. I opened the door. "Mrs. Mason?" she asked. "Yes." She offered her hand. "Elaine Ferris, Paulina's aunt." I stared at her hand for a beat, then shook it. It was cool, soft, firm. "I hope I'm not intruding," she added. "I got your address from the event organizer. She said she wasn't supposed to give it, but—" "Well," I was persistent. "What can I do for you?" She glanced past me into the hallway, then back at my face. "May I come in? Just for a few minutes?" I considered saying no, but something in her expression, not regret exactly, but the tension of someone who wasn't used to being questioned, made me curious. I stepped aside. She walked in like someone who didn't often wait for permission, took in the pictures on the mantel, the crocheted pillow on the armchair, the soft clutter of a lived-in life. She sat when I motioned, then folded her hands neatly in her lap. "I owe you an apology," she said. That caught me off guard. "Do you?" "Yes, for taking your seat. At the graduation." I sat down across from her. "You didn't take it. It was given to you." Her eyes flickered. "Still, I didn't know at the time that it wasn't freely available. Greg simply said his mother had decided not to attend. I assumed, well, I assumed wrong. People usually do," I said, "when they take a man at his word." She gave a short, dry laugh. "You're sharper than they said." That amused me. "They who?" She didn't answer directly. At the banquet, after everything fell apart, I started asking questions. You see, I've never been particularly close to Paulina's side. Not in any real sense. I attend the events, I send the gifts, but I don't play politics. "Then why were you there?" She tilted her head, considering. "Because it was important to Paulina. She wanted the guest list to look a certain way, wanted the family to look a certain way. And you fit the image." "I suppose I do." She paused. "But I don't like being used, and I certainly don't like being lied to." I said nothing. Elaine reached into her bag and pulled out a slim envelope. "This came for you. It was mistakenly sent to their address. Paulina opened it by accident, or so she claims. She handed it off without reading. But I saw your name and thought it best to bring it myself." I took the envelope, curious. It was from the university. A standard manila with a college logo in the corner. Justin's name was on the return address. I opened it. Inside was a printed photo, not glossy, just a copy, of him in his gown, standing in front of a building I didn't recognize. But what caught my eye wasn't the cap or the certificate in his hand. It was the watch, on his wrist, positioned deliberately so the engraving was visible. "Always with you." Below the photo was a handwritten note. "Thought you'd want the first picture. The real one. Love, Jay." I pressed the photo against my chest for a moment, then looked up. Elaine was watching me carefully. Not judgmental, just quiet. "He's a good boy," she said. "Yes," I said. "He is. I hope he stays that way." "So do I." She stood. "I won't take more of your time." As I walked her to the door, she turned one last time. "For what it's worth, Mrs. Mason, I think they've underestimated you. All of them." "They've made a habit of it," I said calmly. Elaine nodded. "Not anymore, I think." And then she was gone. It wasn't the photo that got to me. It was the placement of the watch. That detail, that quiet, deliberate choice, told me more than a dozen apologies ever could. He hadn't just worn it. He'd made sure I saw it, made sure I knew I hadn't been erased, no matter how much Greg and Paulina tried to rewrite the day. I pinned the photo to the small corkboard in the kitchen, just above the calendar. I'd clear space later. For now, it stood alone, a marker, a beginning. That afternoon, I sat down at my desk and pulled out the documents Richard had sent over. 3 stacks: account transfers, revocation of rights, preliminary trust setup. I read each line slowly, methodically, highlighted what mattered, crossed out what didn't. By the time the sun began to lower, everything was signed. I called the courier. An hour later, the paperwork was on its way back to the bank. Justin's name, full and official, was now linked to a trust that would carry him farther than any check from Greg ever would. It wasn't about the money. It never had been. It was about drawing a line, one clean and sharp enough that even Greg wouldn't dare cross it again. The next day, the doorbell rang just after lunch. I opened the door without checking the window. Greg stood on the porch. Not angry, not smug, just defeated. He held a white paper bag in one hand, the kind from that overpriced deli downtown. Inside, no doubt, was something he thought I'd appreciate, a peace offering wrapped in wax paper and arrogance. "Hi, Mom," he said. I didn't invite him in. I didn't reach for the bag. He hesitated. "I just thought maybe we could talk." "We are talking," I said. He glanced over his shoulder like he expected a neighbor to be watching. Maybe they were. He turned back to me. "You embarrassed us." I raised an eyebrow. Interesting choice of opening. "You could have handled it differently. Quietly." "I was quiet. I didn't make a scene. I didn't even come inside. You canceled everything." "Yes," he exhaled sharply. "Do you know what that did to Paulina? To me?" "Yes. You humiliated us." "No, Greg. I exposed you. There's a difference." He didn't like that. His jaw clenched. I stepped outside and pulled the door shut behind me. "No need to bring this into my house," I said. "You forfeited that privilege." He looked wounded, performed, not felt. "Justin came to me," I continued. "He found me in the parking lot. Not because you told him I was there, you didn't, but because he followed his gut. Something you used to have once." "I was trying to protect him," Greg said. "From complications." From me?" I interrupted. "From the woman who raised him when you were too busy chasing job titles and image? From the woman who held him while he sobbed over his mother leaving?" He said nothing. I leaned in slightly. "You weren't protecting him, Greg. You were protecting yourself. From discomfort. From accountability. From the truth of what it looks like to turn your back on the very person who made your life possible." He tried to speak. I didn't let him. "I'm done funding your comfort," I said. "I'm done financing your silence. You want dinners? Pay for them? You want respect? Earn it. You want trust? Try being honest." His face turned red. "You think this is easy for me?" "I think nothing is easy for cowards." He flinched, and for a moment I saw the boy he used to be, the one who used to cry in my arms over bruised knees and missing crayons, the one who used to whisper, "Don't leave yet, Mom," as I tucked him in. That boy was gone. This man, this grown, grasping, polished man, had taken his place. And I didn't owe him anything. "I'll be in touch," he said at last. "No need," I replied. "Everything you used to reach has been moved out of your hands." He looked down at the bag in his hands, like he'd forgotten it, then held it out to me. "Roast chicken on rye," he said quietly. "Your favorite." I didn't take it. "You should eat it before it gets cold," I said. Then I walked back inside and closed the door behind me. I didn't cry. I thought I might. After closing the door on my only child, after refusing the sandwich that once might have been enough to smooth over silence. But I didn't. Not out of coldness. Not out of pride. Just because there were no tears left for Greg. He'd used them all up. Over years of quiet disappointments, of phone calls that were more updates than conversations. Of holidays, I was invited to like a formality. Last minute, corner table, an extra fork, but never a seat that mattered. I'd given my grief its time. What remained now was distance, not punishment, not bitterness, just space and peace. The kind of peace that doesn't wait for permission. That evening, I called Justin. He answered on the first ring. "Hey," he said, breathless. "I was just about to text. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said. "Your father came by." A pause. "Should I ask how it went?" I didn't let him in. Good. There was relief in his voice, and something else too. Guilt, maybe, or the ache of loyalty stretched too far for too long. "He brought a sandwich," I added. Justin laughed. Classic. He thinks things can be fixed with food. Maybe they could once. Maybe, I agreed, but not anymore. We talked for a while, about his plans for the summer, about the dorm he was hoping to move into, about the little job he'd taken at the library for extra money. He spoke easily, freely, not the way young people talk when they're reporting in, but when they're being themselves. "I've been thinking," he said near the end. "I might take a trip before school starts. Not far. Just a break. Maybe come stay with you for a week, if that's all right." "It's more than all right," I said. "I want to help around the house. I can fix that porch railing, maybe repaint the shutters." "You know how to do all that?" "I've got YouTube and pride." I smiled into the receiver. "You've got more than that, Justin. You've got roots. You just needed to remember where they are." We hung up soon after, and I sat in the quiet, fingers still resting on the warm plastic of the phone. Outside, the sky had turned that deep, gentle blue that comes just before true dark. I stepped out onto the porch. The bag Greg had left was still sitting on the top step. Untouched. I picked it up, walked it to the compost bin behind the shed, and dropped it in. I didn't open it. Didn't check if the sandwich had been made the way I liked. It didn't matter. Sometimes, even familiar things become inedible when trust is gone. Later that night, I sat at the kitchen table and opened my recipe book. The old one. The one with butter stains and handwritten notes in the margins. The one Justin used to flip through as a child, asking me if we could make the funny-shaped cookies or the pie with the braids on top. I turned the pages slowly, letting the paper whisper the years back to me. And then I did something I hadn't done in ages. I started a new page. Justin's Cobbler, 2025. Not because the recipe had changed. It hadn't. But because the meaning had. The name mattered now. It marked something reclaimed, something passed on not through obligation, but through choice. I wrote the ingredients, then paused before the instructions. Instead, I wrote, "Make when someone you love finds their way back to you." Then I closed the book. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt full. The week that followed unfolded in small, steady movements. No grand declarations, no sudden confrontations. Just the quiet rebuilding of a life I had left neglected for too long. I cleaned out the upstairs closet, the one full of boxes labeled with years instead of contents. I found photo albums I thought were lost, recipes I'd scribbled on backs of envelopes, birthday cards from Justin when he still signed them with backward letters. On Thursday, I got a letter in the mail, a real one. The handwriting on the envelope was unmistakably Greg's, heavy, angular, overly careful, like he was trying to appear calm, but had pressed too hard with the pen. I opened it at the kitchen counter. No greeting. Just one line. "I'm sorry you felt unwelcome." I stared at the words for a long time. Not because they surprised me, they didn't, but because they landed exactly how he meant them to. Slippery. Blameless. Safe. I folded the letter once, twice, and slid it under the drawer liner in the back of the silverware cabinet. Somewhere out of sight. I wasn't angry. I was done. Justin arrived 2 days later, a duffel bag slung over one shoulder, a box of peaches in the other. "Straight from the orchard," he said proudly. "I figured I'd bring the ingredients since I'm hoping for pie." I stepped aside to let him in. "You've always known how to sweeten the deal." He dropped the bag by the door and looked around the house like he was memorizing it. "It smells like soap and something baked." "That's just the kitchen towels drying on the rack." He turned toward me, a little smile on his face. "It smells like you." We spent the afternoon on the porch. He painted the shutters while I trimmed the lavender. We didn't talk much, just the occasional question, the sound of the brush against wood, birds calling somewhere beyond the fence. Every now and then, he'd stop and look at me like he was making sure I was still there. I always was. That evening, over peach cobbler, still warm with vanilla ice cream melting slow into the crust, he said, "I haven't told Paulina I'm here." I nodded. "That's your business. She messaged me this morning, said she hopes I cool off." "And will you?" He looked down at his bowl. "No, I don't think I will." I waited. "She always said she admired your strength," he continued. Said it with a sort of edge, like strength was a thing to keep an eye on. "Some people are more comfortable with soft things," I said, "until they realize softness can rot just like anything else." He looked at me sharply, then laughed. "You've gotten bolder." "No," I said. "I've gotten quieter. And when a quiet woman starts saying what she really means, people think it's thunder." He leaned back, eyes thoughtful. "You think she'll come around?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "But it's not your job to make her, or to bend yourself until she does." He looked out the window. "I thought I had to choose between love and loyalty. And now? Now I think loyalty should be part of love, not separate from it." That made me smile. He got up then, took our bowls to the sink, rinsed them out like he'd lived here forever. The sight of it, this tall, growing man in my kitchen, stirred something deep in me. Not grief, not nostalgia, but recognition. This was what survival looked like when it chose peace. Not endurance, not bitterness, not silence, but presence. The next morning, I found Justin in the backyard, barefoot in the dew-wet grass, standing beside the old wooden bench that had sagged under so many summer afternoons. He was staring at the tree line, the way people do when they're trying to locate something they can't name. I stepped outside quietly, my robe pulled tight. "You look like someone waiting for a sign," I said. He turned, sheepish. "Maybe I am." I walked toward him slowly, joints still stiff from sleep. "Did you sleep all right?" "Like a stone," he said. I didn't realize how heavy everything had been until it let go. We sat together on the bench, and it groaned beneath us like an old friend waking up. "I keep thinking about the train station," he said after a while. "How close I came to not finding you." "You did find me," I reminded him. "That's what counts." He shook his head. "I know, but I keep playing it over. The speeches, the cameras, the people saying, 'What a perfect day.' And I just remember the way your window rolled down and your face looked, I don't know. Still. He had no idea how much effort that stillness had taken, how many muscles had gone tight to keep my hands from shaking. "I'm glad I turned around," he said. "So am I." He leaned back, let his head rest against the bench rail. "Do you think Dad will ever change?" I didn't answer right away. "I think," I said slowly, "that people change only when their comfort is threatened. And Greg's had a long, easy run. But you changed, he said. No, I corrected him gently. I remembered. He looked at me, really looked, and nodded. Yeah, that's more accurate. We spent the rest of the morning doing little things. Laundry, clearing the garden path, reorganizing the spice rack. He followed my lead without needing to ask, and when I caught him humming under his breath, I didn't say a word. Let it be. Let him have the small piece of usefulness. At lunch, the doorbell rang. Justin peeked through the curtain. It's her. I didn't need to ask who. Paulina stood on the porch in linen pants and oversized sunglasses. She held her phone in one hand, her car keys in the other. Her posture was perfect. Her mouth was set. I'll go, Justin said. No, I said. Let me. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. Mrs. Mason, she said coolly, I see you're well. I am. She looked over my shoulder. Justin's here? He is. Did you think it was appropriate not to tell me? I smiled gently. I didn't think about you at all. That rattled her more than any insult could have. She shifted on her feet, lips pressed tight. I just wanted to say that what happened at graduation wasn't personal, she said. It was unfortunate, but not personal. Everything is personal when you erase someone. I didn't erase you. No, I said. But you helped Greg do it, and you benefited from it. Her jaw tightened. I won't be villainized for something I didn't control. You don't need to be villainized, I said, calm and steady. You need to be irrelevant, which you now are. Paulina blinked. The sunglasses didn't hide the flicker of uncertainty. I'll tell Justin you stopped by, I added. She turned to go, but stopped halfway down the steps. He'll come back to me, she said. They always do. Not this time, I said, closing the door before the silence could answer her. Inside, Justin was in the kitchen, drying dishes. He looked up, concerned. Everything all right? She won't be back. Are you sure? She was never really here. He nodded. I didn't say anything because I didn't know how. She always seemed so certain. She still is, but certainty doesn't equal truth. Just volume. He smiled, sad and warm all at once. You say things like you've been holding them in for years. I looked out the window. The light had shifted. The garden was golden. I have, I said. But I'm done holding. We spent the rest of the week in the kind of quiet that doesn't need explanation. Justin fixed the porch railing like he promised, painted it white, 2 coats, steady hand. He even wiped the brush clean afterward. I didn't ask him to, but he did. That mattered. It's the little things that show whether someone truly sees you, not the grand gestures. He cooked once, too. Tried to recreate my roast chicken using a printed recipe and about 5 times more rosemary than necessary. It was dry, a little burnt, but it was beautiful. I think I'll keep trying, he said that night, chewing slowly. You'll get there. I just want to do it like you do. No, I corrected him gently. You want to do it like you. He looked down at his plate, then back at me. Thanks for not letting me disappear into them. You were never theirs to lose, I said. On his last morning, I stood on the porch with him, the car engine running, bag already in the trunk. He looked hesitant, like he wasn't sure how to say goodbye. I'll come back soon, he said. You don't have to promise, I said, but I want to. He hugged me, long, tight, honest. I smelled his shampoo, the faint cologne he'd borrowed from the hallway cabinet. He'd wanted to smell like someone with direction. You'll be all right? He asked. I already am. He nodded once, then got in the car, rolled the window down. Will you write me sometimes? He asked. I always have. He drove off slowly, waving once before the turn, I stood there until his taillights vanished. That night, I made myself a cup of tea and sat by the window with the recipe book. I didn't open it. I just held it. The spine worn soft by years of hands and heat and flower dust. So many things in this house had changed, but not the feel of that book in my lap. I thought about all the women I'd known, the ones who kept their pain quiet, who swallowed insults with Sunday dinner, who were told they were too much or not enough, too loud, too sharp, too plain, too old. And I thought, we're still here. We're still standing in kitchens, wiping tables, whispering truth into soup pots. We're still the ones who remember the birthdays no one else does. We're still watching from the parking lot, just in case. But maybe not anymore. Maybe we're done waiting for seats at tables we built. Maybe we set our own. And if you're reading this, if you've ever been pushed to the side, talked over, told to stay quiet for the sake of harmony, then know this: you were never the problem. You were the root, and roots grow back. Stronger, deeper, wiser. They always do. If this story found you at the right time, or reminded you of who you are, stay a little longer. Leave a comment. Share your voice. We're not done talking. Not anymore.